Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am doing well, thanks. We're doing week 3, and it's called medical care planning. But before we get started, the sign behind me is called Financial and Estate Literacy. Don is a board member on financial and estate literacy, and as well as myself, and started financial and estate literacy approximately 10 years ago as a not-for-profit for the purpose of educating individuals on estate planning, financial planning, and charitable planning. And that's our mission. And so we don't have any for-profit sponsors. All we're sponsored by is charities, so that you're not sold anything. And the whole idea is hopefully to get you to stay in charge of your own life, of your money and medical. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. Well, at the last minute today, Michael Vivrette, which was going to be our PhD geriatric care manager, he was going to present, and he was called in to do a presentation at a national conference. Both Don and I have heard his presentation in the past. We have his outline. Both Don and myself have taken care of other individuals for medical care planning. Don has prepared a workbook. Talk a little bit about that workbook, Don.
So in the materials that you can download, each week there's also one that says workbook for this year. We did it last series that we did. I felt that it might be important for people to be able to have that as an overarching. Each week you can download the material. That's still available, and we want you very much to do that. The workbook was done to sort of give you some thought overall. Who would you want to use as an advisor for your advanced healthcare directive, or for your trust, or for whatever it happens to be, to give you some things to think about before you go see a professional in terms of what's going on? Because you can walk in and they go, well, give us some names of some people. I have no clue. I've never thought about it. Well, that's what the workbook's for. Think about it. What kinds of things would you like to consider, like to have going on? And that's what the workbook is really all about. It's just for you. It's not a plan. It's not something that if you go through and work through that, you're going to, this is my finished product. No, it's the finished beginning.
Yeah, that's a good way to, that's a good description of it, because a lot of times I get questioned as to why do we have medical care planning in a It's Your Money program? Well, I mean, medical costs today are sky high. Custodial care is sky high, and we're living longer. So the good news is we're living longer, and bad news is we're living longer. So your net worth is kind of tells you what kind of care that you're going to receive. Yeah. And you have to have somebody knowledgeable. Just prior to coming on the air, Don and I were chit-chatting a little bit, and you know, we're economic units to a lot of to the medical industry, whether it be a doctor, whether it be a long-term care facility, whether it be an assisted care facility, a skilled nursing facility. So we need to understand medical care planning. I'm a professional fiduciary, and when I take on a client, one of the first things I try to figure out is their net worth. Not because I'm just after their money, but it determines where we go and how quickly we can spend down and what kind of care we can provide. A lot of it has to do with of your net worth and money. And by
planning,
the way,
because you could have planned for something, long-term care insurance or something else. That's the alternative. Certainly is highly recommended if available. But that's where it is an issue of, unfortunately today, the cost of care is often driven by the availability of money to pay for it. Yeah. And that's an unfortunate statement to make, but a real statement to make.
Yeah. And Michael said that if anybody has questions after this presentation, you're more than welcome to give him a call or to send him an email to ask, because there's a whole new profession out there, and we're going to discuss that in just a little bit. Why don't you pull up his slides there, Don?
Turn off something in case I do something accidental.
So the title of the presentation is Advanced Care Planning, Facilitating Rich End of Life Conversations. And in talking to Michael, you know, and it's my experience as well, especially with my own mother, people, a lot of folks just don't want to talk about their medical care. And so having that conversation is one of the most important things that you can do. And who should you have that conversation with, Don?
Everybody, anybody who might be taking care of you.
Yeah.
As Pete always likes to say, and I'll shoot the shot he might make at the end. We're coming up on Thanksgiving. Family's going to be together. What other issues should you discuss? These kinds of things are definitely there. And it's, you know, something we, in a sense, we can't avoid these and they're there. So,
yeah. So let's go to the next slide. So there's this whole group of retired nurses, people who have experience in the care industry, and they started a whole new profession and of a care. They used to be called geriatric care managers. And as a professional fiduciary, when I am in a healthcare agent for another individual, I would hire a care manager if needed, if I didn't know anything about the medical process or I needed a second opinion. As the slide says, they come from diverse qualifications. A lot of them come from retired RNs. And by the way, an RN just makes an excellent care manager because they understand hospitals, they understand medical doctors, and they're better communicators than most others. So what can care managers do? They assess the situation, coordinate care and services. This is an important one. They act as a liaison between the client, providers, loved ones, fiduciaries, community resources, and
no, Pete, I'm not going to say anything.
I know. I just silenced my phone. Sorry about that. Gosh.
Someone's in need, Pete. Someone's in need.
They also are the advocate. They monitor. So when in your advanced healthcare directive, you're going to give somebody legal authority to make decisions for you about your medical care only if you're not capable of communicating it yourself to the medical staff. So I serve as that agent for some people, but I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not a nurse. I can only listen to them. And so sometimes I can't explain exactly what is going on with the patient to the family members because I'm not a person of authority. And so I will hire a geriatric care manager to do that for me so that the family can ask questions. I will also ask the care manager to review the care plan. Are we doing this correctly? Is there some other ways that we can possibly improve the situation? Is there any, this is what they're telling me at the care facility. What do you think? So
a question for you, Pete, I'm going to guess not, but would you have a care manager be the agent for advanced healthcare directive?
Normally they would not.
I was going to say, I would guess not. It would be someone like you or a family member, but because this is the expert who's going to help you with this specific issue. And so they're going to, and although I do want to go back to the highlighted thing on that first line, a proactive plan. Let's think possibly ahead of time what kinds of things do we want to consider and where do we want to go, which is critical in this whole thing. When you can and when you have the time to do it, is think about where you want to go. One, for your family. Two, for whoever that agent is, whether it's family or someone like Pete or something. But to me, this is the consultant who helps you. I mean, it's like sort of like our daughters. We've said, okay, if you're the executive of our estate, here's the attorney you need to call to make sure we're getting this the way it is. And effectively, care manager is, they're going to care about you. The attorney's going to do legal stuff over here for something else, but the care manager is, let me help you from a technical standpoint.
Yeah, they usually charge by the hour, $75 to $175 per hour, but you don't need them on a 24-hour basis because they're not the healthcare agent.
Right.
But I use them, for example, in a situation, somebody's at home and they have multiple prescriptions. And I, you know, how do you make sense of this? So I bring in a care manager who understands the medications and say, okay, yeah, let's talk to the doctor about this one. I don't think this is a duplicate, you know, and then you have the whole issue of people taking supplements, you know, so I want an expert coming in and saying, hey, you know, do away with these supplements. No, this is one that is good. It takes some time. Let's go to the next slide.
How can I find these people, Pete?
Here is the slide. It's called now Aging Life Care Association. It's a national organization, and they list people who serve in this capacity as a care manager. And I found them to be excellent. And you could also, some people are more expert in cancer. Some people are more excellent in brain injuries. Other individuals are more expert in Parkinson's. Almost most of them have experience dealing with somebody who has dementia. So, you know, what is it? Henny Youngman said that getting older is not for sissies. You know, we all are going to have life care issues. And today, modern medicine it's an industry, big business, from hospitals, skilled nursing facilities, home care, boarding cares. So you need an advocate. And sometimes the advocate, whoever you named in your advanced healthcare directive, is not knowledgeable. Well, they don't have to be super knowledgeable if you can find, if they know about this organization that they can call and hire somebody on an hourly basis to assist them to go through the process. Let's go to the next slide.
Will they go to the hospital with you or to the health group?
I have, yes. They go to, or they go to the hospital on their own and read the charts and talk to the nurses. They speak that same language.
Right. Yeah.
And so, you know, it's really helpful having one of them to assist you.
So what kinds of facilities are we looking at? Care.
Yeah. The vocabulary is just really important here. Hospitals are all about acute care. In other words, the type of care no other place can provide. The ICU, intensive care unit, and they label it acute care. And if you don't have any insurance whatsoever and you're over 65, Medicare steps in and says, we'll pay for your care in the hospital under Medicare. So, and then when you go into the hospital, you are assigned a hospitalist. And this hospitalist is the one that's going to be in charge of you. Now, they don't know you. So it's, again, really important to have your healthcare agent be there with you in the hospital so they can explain to the medical doctor, the hospitalist, what kind of drugs you're on, what kind of medical history do you have, what kind of pain tolerance you have, whether or not you're allergic to anything. etc. You're also going to meet, when you go into the hospital, one of the first individuals, a discharge nurse, because as soon as you go in, they're already planning on how you're going to leave that hospital. Because if you just need skilled care, i.e. rehabilitation, then the hospital doesn't provide that. So you need to be in the hospital 3 days plus 1, and then you have 20 days of skilled care paid for by Medicare. Now, when you go into the skilled care facility,
Well, let's stay with the hospital. So it's interesting to me that, as you say, this is the guy who's going to take care of you, and this person who's going to get rid of you. My wife had a friend that just had a complete hip replacement, and 4 hours later was released and went home.
yeah, you don't stay.
Not even overnight. I mean, it was
No,
that day, surgery, out you go. And it's
Yeah,
like, whoa.
I had 92-year-old was in the hospital for 2 days on a hip. She could barely walk.
Yeah.
So yeah. By the way, upon discharge, there's an 800 telephone number on that discharge paperwork. And if you feel, or your advocate feels, that you're getting the discharge out of the hospital too soon, you try to get out of bed and you fall. Hey, you may not be ready to go home. You don't have to be a doctor to figure that out. Then you should immediately talk to the head nurse or to the hospitalist and say, hey, I don't think my mom, my dad, my patient is ready to go home. And then you'll have a conversation with the hospitalist and say, well, why do you feel that way? And you go, blah, 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 blah. And then you go, well, I feel so strongly that I'm going to call this 800 number. And then usually what happens is the primary nurse on staff and the hospitalist will allow for another 24, 48-hour stay in the hospital. If they don't, you call that 800 number, and that takes about 24 hours. So you've got it at least 24 hours of a continuing stay in the hospital. In the hospital, when you got to understand how they bill. I just had a friend received a $17,000 bill, unitemized. So it's a huge issue. Number one reason for bankruptcy right now is medical. Somebody can't pay their medical bills. So this is an important issue because it's about your money. So when you go into the hospital, let's say you have a groin injury. Well, they look up in the book and it says groins. Okay, this is what you need to do: severe, mild, and it has an amount there. If the hospital can cure you from acute care in less days than the book says, they make more revenue. If it takes longer, then they're kind of eating some of their revenue. So I hate to say this, but money many a time comes into play in making medical decisions.
I want to take you back to the statement you made a minute ago, because I think it's extremely important for people to understand. If I'm in a hospital, I have to be there for 2 days plus 1.
3.
3 plus 1?
Yeah. So it's actually 4 days.
Okay. So
that's if you're just under Medicare.
And then that will then give me funding to go to a rehab facility for a period of time. If I'm less than that, then it won't cover the rehab.
No,
so that's very important to know.
Yeah, if that's under Medicare. Now, if you have it in an HMO, then you have to know the rules under the HMO.
Good point.
And if you're under an HMO, then they just have specific skilled care facilities that they will reimburse you for.
Right.
So, then it's up to the HMO to say, okay, you're going to X or to Y. If you're into Medicare, then you have any choice whatsoever, whoever accepts Medicare. If you have a supplement with Medicare, these skilled nursing facilities know these insurance companies and they'll check. And a lot of times it's based on how their past history is with that particular insurance company.
Okay.
It's about the money. So
Well, that's it. That's why I say, yeah.
you know, now when you go to the skilled care facility, your primary care physician is not in charge. Your hospitalist is not in charge. The medical director of the skilled care facility is in charge of you. Now, how many people are in the skilled nursing facility? It could be 20, it could be 100, it could be, 150. Skilled care facilities today are jammed. Hospitals, you can sometimes use a bowling ball. There's so few people in there. And by the way, you get to have a choice of what skilled care facility that you go to. You don't have to go to the one that they recommend. The discharge nurse wants you, her job, it's usually a her, wants you out of that hospital as soon as possible. So whenever there's an opening, that's where they're going to place you. That does not mean that you have to go there. So I can tell you that I reject sometimes 2 to 3 different skilled care facilities for my clients because I don't want them to go there. I don't believe that they have sufficient staff and sufficient care, and I want them to go somewhere else.
Would a care manager know where to go or not go?
Especially if you get somebody local.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason. You hire them for their experience in the community. So there are good ones, bad ones, mediocre ones. And
Right.
You want, for your particular situation, you want a good one, at least.
Right.
So you also have the medical doctor that when you go into the skilled care facility, also is the owner of that skilled care facility. Possible conflict. So the 20 days, 17 days into you being there, I hear many a time is, hey, your mom is just, she's really doing well on her rehabilitation and she's plateauing. There is no such word in the Medicare lingo of whether or not you stay or not stay. But I hear that all the time. Plateauing is not a reason not to get care, but they're using that as a way to get you out because they want you to go home and get what's called custodial care. Custodial care is the activities of daily living, ambulate, toileting, dressing.
We're going to come to specifics on that in a few minutes.
Okay, but custodial care is not paid for by Medicare. Medicare only pays for skilled or acute care. HMOs don't have custodial care. So custodial care is something that you have to pay on your own or that you have insurance. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Again,
So,
go ahead.
Question for you that just came up. You're sort of questioning this 3 days plus 1. I fractured my hip, had surgery at Mission Hospital, was in an emergency room / hospital for 1 full day, 2 half days, so 3 days. Medicare covered my skilled nursing. Is that what Pete's talking about? And why was skilled nursing care covered if not 4 days? And it was in skilled nursing for 2 weeks.
I don't know if the person had an HMO or did she just have Medicare only? Did she have a Medicare plus supplemental insurance. There's too many unanswered questions there for me to, usually if somebody just has Medicare alone, no other insurance, et cetera, then it's 3 days plus 1.
Okay.
And so many a time, I would tell the individual, if they just have Medicare, we're not getting you. It's also the reason when you go into the hospital now that you're not admitted into the hospital. You're into, I've had clients who have been in the hospital for 24 hours, but not under the statute, not admitted.
Right.
It's how Medicare.
It's a business.
It's a business, man. Boy, is it a business.
So let's talk about Medicare.
Let's talk about the next
Medicare.
slide. That's the next slide.
Yes. Coincidence.
Medicare is wonderful. So it's for those who are 65 or someone who is younger and has specific health conditions. There's Part A, Part B, Part C, Part D. I just, did you get your Medicare book, Don?
My 150-page book, yes.
Yeah, same here. Isn't it unbelievable? 150 pages. And how do they expect somebody 85, 90, 100 years old to understand what's in that book? You need an advocate again, okay? Let's go to the next. This group is absolutely wonderful. It's the Council on Aging here in Orange County. If you have a medical question, they are super to help you find the answer. Many volunteers. High Cap, which is health insurance counseling and advocacy program, is funded by fines from the insurance companies. And so
wait, I'm sorry, is funded by what?
Fines, F-I-N-E.
I've been bad, and therefore there's going to be an advocacy.
Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
So they're neutral. The Council on Aging, they will review long-term care contracts. By the way, they're hard to understand. So they will answer your questions on Medicare. They're a wonderful, wonderful organization. By the way, who should know this telephone number?
Your advocate.
Exactly. Because usually you're not in a condition that to ask to find out for help. So your advocate needs to know the Council on Aging. Let's go to the next slide.
So you'd made the comment about ADLs, so that's why I wanted to make sure we got back to this one.
Yeah. This language here is used to qualify people for Medi-Cal. This language is used for people to qualify and enact their long-term care program. This particular language is used for home health care, for board-in cares. And by the way, if I asked a patient or a client to be reviewed, and all of a sudden they haven't been able to put their shirt on, but all of a sudden here's a nurse, a neutral third party, and they're showing them how to put their shirt on and they have no problem. So a lot of times this is that period of time. Michael has a great story about his mom. She used to always get dressed up to go to her primary care physician, and the primary care physician would say, "God, you look great." And Michael would have to go, "Yeah, she just spent 3 hours fixing herself up just to come here." So
when my father was in the ICU at Mission for several months he cracked his skull and all kinds of issues going on. And I discovered after a while, whenever I would go in to see him, it was like almost reading the newspaper to him. So what happened today? And who's the president? And what's the date? And what's the weather outside? And all these other things. And I thought, fascinating. This is what he wants to talk about every time. I happened to be there when his neurologist came in. And the first thing the guy said is, what's going on in the news today? Who's the president? What's the weather outside of it? You're prepping for an exam, for God's sakes. And you're using me sort of like, let's get dressed up to go to the doctor. No, don't do this.
Well, the thing of it is why it's important is that if you have a long-term care policy, they require 2 to 3 of these activities that you have problems with it.
Who decides that? I mean, my wife would probably say that I might fail on 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah,
but I'm sure it's not her choice. It has to be a doctor.
The insurance company will hire an independent third party to come by and sit with you for about an hour. And the good news there is I found them to be very honest, ethical, and really try to assess the situation fairly. Okay. So yeah, so we can add a 7th one on this, and that's cognition. So but usually if you have trouble bathing, dressing, toileting, cognition is part of the problem as well. So
you mentioned long-term care.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, it's my mother-in-law is 101 years old. So she needs help with dressing. She needs help with toileting. She can't prepare her own food, but she's very, she comes in, cognition is pretty good. And with wheelchair and walker, she can get around. So, and she's staying at home. So the question becomes, who's paying for this long-term care? And so one of the things is you can self-insure. So again, what's your net worth? What kind of cash flow do you have? Emotional and physical health. I've got a client right now that he's okay physically, but mentally he's just not there. So he just can't figure out where he is, and he just needs assistance, even though physically he's okay. And what's the cost? Right today, you were mentioning before, Dawn, that you had a friend who was in a board and care. How much was she paying?
$5,000 a month.
$5,000 a month. And that's low. And she's staying in what's called a 6-bed or less facility, which are called board and cares. And they're licensed by the state of California. And the maximum number of people they can have is 6. So they run anywhere from 5. Well, I've seen them as low as they're 4,000, but from $4,000 to $15,000 per month. So you want to make sure you have that. I always advise people, see if you can, if you own a home or if you have a net worth, see if you could stash $300,000 somewhere in liquidity or in your home value to pay for long-term care. Hopefully, by the way, not all of us are going to need long-term care, okay? Most of us are going to die before the need for long-term care, which is always good news to me. It's sad sometimes when we see, and I have many clients who tell me all the time, I want to die. And that's a whole nother subject, but it's about the quality of life. And you need to talk about that quality of life that you want with your advocate, with your healthcare agent. When I am an agent or a healthcare agent for someone, we spend 1 to 2 hours together just at no charge, just for me to get a sense as to how they want to die. Where do they want to die? What kind of pain tolerance do they have? What does quality of life mean for them? Who do they not want me to talk to? So, and you should do that with your own kids, okay? Well, that's the next one. You can live with your children. Today, there's a whole new California law in the state of California where you can have independent units built onto your house, and you can live with your children. Now, my mother said, you know, I'd rather die than live with you, Pete. I love you, but no way am I going to live with you. So, you know, good news there is my older sister had an independent room with a bathroom, and so that she could maintain her independence and still get assistance when she needed it. You could transfer the cost to the insurance company, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides as to how to transfer that cost. But long-term care insurance is pretty tough to get today. The insurance companies vastly underestimated the cost of long-term care when they first started this policy, because it's a fairly new policy. It's 40, 50 years old, which is new in the insurance business. You can apply for government benefits, and that's called Medicaid in most states. In California, it's
And we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, it's called Medi-Cal. Let's go to the next slide. Long-term, if you have a long-term care policy, the first thing I would do is to make sure that your healthcare agent knows about it. Put it with your estate planning documents, put it with your advanced healthcare directive, and make sure that your agent understands how to enact that policy. So who do they call? What do they have to say to the insurance company? And the language here is Joe Smith has a long-term care policy, and he shows these lack of ability of activities of daily living. He can't eat by himself, he can't ambulate, and he can't toilet. Oh, okay. We'll send a nurse out, blah, blah, blah. So how do they determine the premium? What it's going to cost? Well, it's figured out by cost per day. So caregivers today run anywhere from $20 an hour to $35 an hour. So, and there are care agencies. They require a minimum of 4 hours, and they also they have 12-hour shifts, and they have 24/7 shifts. And so it can easily, on an annual basis, run anywhere between $100,000 to $150,000 per year if you wanted somebody to come into your home. And the insurance will pay for that depending on the amount that you asked for when you purchased this policy. So you can do $50 a day, you can do $500 a day. Of course, when you go $500 a day, your premium is going to be absolutely high. Okay, so you've got to figure that out. It's an indemnity policy, so it covers you for the period of time that you are alive on a daily basis. Some policies have inflation protection, most don't. So, gosh, in today's world, if you have a policy with an inflation protection provision, keep it. And the problem is, a lot of times with these policies is that they increase the price on your premiums every 6 to 7 years. And even though the policy itself says your premium is not going to be increased, for your life. Well, insurance is controlled by the state commissioner's office. And so a long-term care insurance company will go to the insurance commissioner and say, if we don't increase our rates, we're going to go out of business. What do you want us to do? The insurance commissioner says, go ahead and increase the rates. So even though it says they won't, the sad fact is they do. And about 40% of policyholders cancel their policy after 6 to 7 years. Comprehensive policy includes residential care, home care, respite care, adult care, nursing home care. There are policies out there that says, oh, we're only going to pay for residential board-in cares. So they will not cover home care. Try to avoid those policies altogether. Who knows what your situation is going to be like when you get to the stage of needing coverage. Aflac is my favorite quack quack. They sell specific disease policies, and it's very emotional. Avoid specific disease policies because it's kind of like you're gambling. If the physician on the death cert doesn't put down exactly why you died and name that specific disease, all the premiums that you paid for will be gone. So just purchase a regular, if you're going to a life insurance policy, whether it's term or life, don't buy a specific disease policy. As a investment note, you may want to become a stockholder in Aflac. They make quite a bit of money. Determine the financial health of insurance company. Well, how do you do that? It's hard. Financial insurance companies are rated by outside agencies that they pay for. So, you know, they go by some rating agents go AAA, some is the top notch, some go best does just an A. So, but you need to kind of keep an eye on the financial health of the insurance company. They do go broke. We've had 2 or 3 go broke here in California. So it's important to figure that out. Age limit or pre-existing conditions. I've seen people get coverage at 90. So there are policies out there that will do that, but the premiums are quite high as well. So sometimes if you have heart problems, they will allow you to have a long-term care policy, but they will exclude any kind of heart condition as the reason for your long-term care for a minimum of 6 months or longer. Like any insurance product, you've got 30 days to rescind. And the reason for that is they're totally difficult to understand and to comprehend. Okay. And so after you sign it, you got 30 days to review it, and you can rescind for any reason at all. If you purchased one and you don't understand it, I really encourage you to call HICAP, Council on Aging. They will meet, a volunteer will meet with you at a senior center or at a library, and they're awesome. They'll go through that policy with you because your agent needs to know what are the triggering events in order to get that policy to be used. The other thing too is on the policy, you could say, hey, I'm willing to pay 30 days on my own. I'm willing to pay 60 days on my own. I'm willing to pay 90 days on my own. Well, the thing of it is that if you need long-term care, it could be a very short period of time. And the longer you stretch that elimination period out, the less expensive your premiums are going to be. Next slide.
And this incidentally is answering the question that was just asked. Someone wanted to ask about this.
And it's no longer there.
Oh.
CalPERS right now doesn't have any lifetime policies. They have reduced, they've given everybody who had a lifetime policy the choice of tripling or quadrupling their premiums or to make it a 3-year policy. And by the way, I think for most of us, 3 years, if we do have a policy, we should look at 3 years as the max.
3 years of care, not 3 years from today.
Yeah, 3 years of potential care. So Genworth used to be one of the big ones, and but they've pulled out of the California partnership policy. So, but again, if you have a policy today, get it reviewed by the Council on Aging. Next slide.
Yep.
Here's the elimination period. So your premiums are based on, if you want the policy to kick in on the first day that you need long-term care, your premiums are going to be quite high. So I always suggest 90 days, or for some folks, they want to use it as a catastrophic. Hey, I don't have family. I don't have anyone. I know I have enough money to take care of myself for 1 year. And but I need, if it goes possibly longer than a year, I want the policy to kick in. So you can, a good long-term care insurance agent will work with you and go through a variety of scenarios to get you a policy with the minimum cost. What's happening today, there are so few policies out there. They're trying to tag it on to a universal life policy. And these are good, or something to consider. I shouldn't say good. These are something to consider if you're in your 50s today and you have a lot of time before you likely need long-term care. Again, the smaller the amount that you need to be dispersed on a daily basis, the less your premium, and of course, the length of coverage. Do you want to buy year? Do you want lifetime, etc.? But it's something that you need to really work with an agent on so that you can get something that fits. So they need to know your net worth. They need to know your spending. They need to understand your situation. You know, this is not, hey, I trust my agent and whatever they recommend is good. I would advise getting a CPA or a fee-only fiduciary advisor involved as a retainer just to get the right plan for you. Medi-Cal planning. Well, Medi-Cal provides custodial care for people with a low income. What does a low income mean? Well, low income means is that you have to have less than $1,500 a year in income. So you can have, but anything more, or even your income is quite limited. But you can have a home, a vehicle. You can have doves coming out of your burial plan, and you can have the $1,500, and those assets will be protected. There are scammers out there, and the insurance guy, usually it's an insurance annuity salesperson with an attorney, and they go, okay, let's come to a workshop or a seminar or a free dinner, and we'll show you how to get Medi-Cal qualified. Avoid them, because what it means is that they want to take your money and put it into an irrevocable trust and put your kids in charge of your money. and then they sell the kids annuities, and then you have to have 36 months of some kind of care that nobody pays for, and then you become Medi-Cal qualified. There's no such a thing as a Medi-Cal bed. When you go into an assisted care facility or a board and care, there are no beds labeled, okay, this is a Medi-Cal patient. In fact, Medi-Cal is a lot better paying a lot of times than some of the insurance today. So it's a great program. If you hear of somebody trying to scam it, don't talk to them again, because it could be ruining a good program even for the rest of us. Options for long-term care. Skilled nursing facilities. What I do when I examine a skilled nursing facility is I want to know who the medical director is. I don't want to talk to the marketing director. How many individuals are you caring for? What is your staff like? How long has your staff been here? Right now with COVID and the medical industry are losing so many staff people. Michael was just telling me that he works also at Saddleback Hospital. And he's saying Saddleback gave everybody in the hospital 10% increase in salary just to hopefully keep the employees that they have. So it's a huge thing today. Everybody is short-staffed. Assisted living ranging from small 6 beds, that is definition of a board and care. And there are 6,000 of them here in Orange County. So you need the help of someone. And each one of these board and cares has a big poster on it listing an ombudsman. An ombudsman program is
Pete,
done.
I'm gonna hold you on that one for just a moment, because I think we're going to come into that in a moment.
Okay. They're good folks. So, and then there's in-home care. If I talk to someone, most times they say, I don't want to leave my house. Okay. And many a time, that's just the right place for the person to be. Well, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes you have 4 different levels of floors with stairs and you can't move. Sometimes you have a caregiver who barely speaks English and you're isolated. So there's no social activity. So, sometimes a board and care can be better for you. Let's go to the next slide. I use this particular booklet. It's done by Help, and it's called Your Way. And, I wish people who died could come back to us and say, this is the way I would do it. This is what I would avoid. And, it doesn't happen. So, and as we get older, I think I'm 73 today, and I think quite a bit different than when I was 50. At 50, I didn't even think about long-term care or death. I think about it more often today. The booklet is not a test. It just gets you to talk whoever your healthcare agent is, so that they know what to do, because it's not their life, it's your life that they're taking care of. So what is important to you? What do you want to make sure that you avoid? Today, they can keep you alive. I mean, there was just a recent case, I think Anna Hecht, where they kept her alive for 2 or 3 days until they could figure out organ donations. So, what does death mean to you? Is it your heart has stopped, or does it mean your brain has stopped functioning? Don, what is it for you?
Depends on my brain as to what day it is.
Yeah, for me, it's, if my brain has no activity,
If I flatline, then don't.
yeah, cut me off. But legally, it's your heart. You're not declared dead until your heart stops.
I know we did one of these presentations a while back, and the woman who was doing the presentation asked, actually it was on advanced healthcare directives, and she said, who all has identified who their agent is, and I have to say, well, it was on Zoom, and I said, I have, and she goes, okay, can I ask you some questions? Yes. Who's your agent? My wife. Okay, that's very common. But she said, do you honestly believe that your wife will do what you're asking? And I said, well, with COVID, one of the things I've said is, don't put me on a ventilator. And she said, do you think she will do that? And I said, well, I've told her that if she does, she better not take me off the ventilator, because I won't be a nice person.
Yeah,
But, what are your individual wishes? And as you say, with your way, what is it that you feel is important? And Advanced Healthcare Directive helps you with that, but this is also a very good discussion tool to have as you go through.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why I do the workshops is that my father was on a ventilator, and he came out of the operation.
Yes.
Yeah, he came out of the operation on a ventilator, and we didn't have the conversation. We didn't have an advanced healthcare directive. And I have 3 sisters, and the 4 of us couldn't come to an agreement. My mother did not want to come to the hospital. She doesn't like the sight of blood. And the only thing that she kept on saying to us is, do whatever the doctor says. And we had 2 hospitalists who I think were 35 years old in charge. And it was a nightmare. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing the workshops. So I was going to call the workshops not "It's Your Money." I was going to call the workshop "It's Your Death." And people advised me.
Not good for marketing. Not good for marketing.
Nobody would go. So that booklet, by the way, is free to anyone. And if you want more than one booklet, they charge you $2.50. Please send them $5. It's well worth it. Get 2 of them, maybe 3 or 4, and give yourself the right to change your mind as you go through. If you're going to name a spouse, please talk to your spouse and say, if I get to a point, that where can you let me go? Because a lot of times between spouses, that's the spouse that's the caregiver. By the way, us men usually die before our wives. And so who ends up being the care manager and the caretaker? It's the woman. Many a time, the women die before the person that they're caring for, because it isn't easy. And, us men sometimes get very stubborn when we don't feel well and want to be babied. And all of a sudden we're way, anywhere between 150 to 200 pounds. And so just lifting us up is difficult physically. So make sure you have this discussion. Let's go to the next slide.
Hang on a minute. So there's just a question of what was the website. So www.help4srsseniors.org is the site. So they didn't have a chance to write it down. So rather than putting it in the chat, I just want to come back to you.
And go to their website, and they have just a tremendous amount of good material on there. Okay. And if you can't find a Your Way booklet on the site, give them a call, and you can make the transaction over the phone.
And incidentally, again, all of these handouts, this was the plans handout for today. So it is on the website, our website. Download it. It has all the information you're seeing now is on the website. So anyway.
How are we doing on time, Don?
It is just after 11.
Okay.
So we have a half an hour.
Good.
And we're slide 18 and we have 35 total. So we're going to pick up the pace.
Okay. Polst. It stands for Physician Orders for Life-Sustaining Treatment. Michael was one of the writers of the Pulse, and it is a wonderful document because it's a medical order. Now, in the medical industry, when you have an order from a doctor, it's kind of like having a judge making an order. It has weight. And so when you are in, I would say, in the last year of your life, and, you know, we never 100% sure, but we've had some issues, recommend highly that you complete a Pulse because it's a medical order. And it says on there that my primary care physician or whoever I named on that Pulse is in charge. And it's bright pink so that everybody can see it. I don't know what the ACP, what he meant by that, but here's the difference between the two. The Advanced Healthcare Directive is a legal document, part of your estate plan. Each person should have one, anyone over 18, and it gives another individual legal authority to make decisions if you can't make it yourself. But it has a general AB. Hey, keep me alive and for as long as you can and try to do everything possible. Or don't take any extraordinary means to keep me alive. It's those two check a box. You can write in, kind of add to that what you want. But again, it's giving the legal authority to another individual. Under the Pulse, you're giving the medical doctor that authority. And the Advanced Healthcare Directive, you give general instructions. And in the Pulse, you're given specific instructions. It can also serve as a DNR, do not resuscitate. And then the last, go back to the slide. It names medical decision maker, your agent, or it can be signed by the decision maker. It can be signed by you and in front of the doctor. Let's go to the next slide. Study shows that only 25% have recorded a medical care wishes in a legal document. They just came out with a study the other day that said only 40% of all adults have an estate plan. Before you go into the hospital, they want you to have an Advanced Healthcare Directive. They don't want to be responsible. They want to find your agent to be the responsible person. You know, 50% not able to make their own medical decisions. Default, treat aggressively if not desired. If I were you, put a star next to that. You know, how many chemotherapy treatments do you want? They're going to treat.
I mean, if you're in an emergency, certainly an emergency situation and in an acute care in a hospital, their responsibility is to keep you alive and keep you going. Because one, that's what they feel. And two, they have a heck of a legal liability if they accidentally let you die. And that wasn't your wish. You wanted to have full treatment. So they're going to go through and do this and say, hey, we're going to take whatever effort we can.
Go back to the other one for a second. They did a survey of medical doctors and as to what, by the way, the Advanced Healthcare Directive says extraordinary means to keep me alive. Now, I don't know what extraordinary means. And I guarantee you doctors don't either, because being intubated could be normal as far as they're concerned. Putting you on a stomach tube could be normal, and it could be. You know, it can be just a temporary thing. So you have to have that kind of a discussion. I had an individual who got admitted to Los Alamitos Hospital. She had been found on the floor of her kitchen for the entire weekend. And so on Monday morning, she arrives at the hospital, heart still beating. They don't know exactly how much brain function she has, totally intubated. They guess that she's already had renal failure and she had some sort of a stroke or a heart attack. They found her advanced healthcare directive, and it said on there, no extraordinary means to keep me alive. I arrive at 9 o'clock in the morning and talk to the ER medical person. By the way, she put me in as her medical agent without talking to me. Not a great idea. By the way, a lot of people do that without having a conversation with their agent. And so I said to the ER person, the likelihood of quality of life for her is probably very much diminished. And he said, well, we don't know that. And I said, well, I think what she's, on is extraordinary. And he said, nah, what we're doing is completely ordinary in an emergency situation. And so we had to negotiate. And so we came to the conclusion that we would leave her on the intubated until Wednesday. He says, I want 2 experts to come in and look at her, see how she behaves in the next 24, 48 hours. If she does not show any signs of improvement, we'll remove the tube. And I said, okay, that sounds fair. And we agreed. Wednesday came around, no improvement whatsoever. They removed the tube. She died in 20 minutes later, a very peaceful death. So you got to have somebody who can have that kind of conversation, because if nobody was there, they would continue keeping her on the ventilator. So this is what the pulse looks like.
The argument is if you wish one, you fill one of these out, given its interesting color, you attach it to your refrigerator, if nothing, 1 copy attached to your refrigerator. And then when an emergency tech comes into your house to try to find out what's going on, they're basically to look at your refrigerator face and see if they find this, because this will tell them, wait, these are what we need to do. Otherwise, they're going to take extraordinary action to keep you alive, to get you to the hospital and continue on with treatment. You may also want to have a copy of them with you, or wherever. But
yeah, but see section B on that form, that's the check a box. That's where you say extraordinary means no, I want to die, etc. Sometimes it's just sometimes the just want palliative care. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
I was going to say we're going to come back to it.
Yeah, when the plan is unclear, when you're not clear as to what you want, then the option is aggressive. And I've seen it, uncertainty, stress. Go back a second. Guilt, depression. This is a huge one, especially for the spouse that's alive and taken care of. Have I done anything and everything possible to keep my loved one alive? And if you haven't had that conversation, then, you're going to end up in a room like this, and it's not fun. Financial concerns, I think they come secondary, but definitely have to be considered.
I'm going to scoot us along, Pete, in the interest of time.
Okay.
So
these are just good resources to begin the conversation. If you're having trouble talking about your end of life care, these things are there to assist you. Next.
And we talk about an advanced healthcare directive and it's your estate. And so on some of these, I'm going to push us briskly through these because I want to get to the palliative care aspect also. In terms of where we are. So a lot of these are ones that, all right, there's different options and different things to think about. And they're all very important. And again, please download the material and take a look at it. But certainly on It's Your Estate, we spent half of the session just on the Advanced Healthcare Directive.
I don't think I've finished my thought on what extraordinary means medical physicians choose. There's only
Okay.
one, and that's morphine. Okay, they don't choose any other. So think about that. For people in the industry, they're right there. The only extraordinary means, give me more morphine. Who do you trust to make your decision? Please do this carefully. What makes an exam, what makes your closest family member are going to be the most stressed out? Do you really want them to make the medical decisions for you? So make sure you have alternatives. So if they can't find the first person you've chosen, they can go to the second. Good, next one. Your signature and date has to be 2 signatures on that, or a notary. And it can't be if you're in a board and care, you need the ombudsman.
An employee at a hospital or at a care facility cannot sign, cannot be a witness. So it needs to be an ombudsman position in terms of being able to do that.
Yeah, what types of can be included in advanced healthcare? See, where would you like to be when you die? 85% of people say that they would like to die at home. And it's most people die in the hospital. What medical doctor do you want there? Or how about accepting or refusing life-sustaining treatments? You know, one of our sponsors is the Hemlock Society, and you may, if you want to know more about that, please go to their website. They have lots of really good information on there.
Incidentally, if you don't wish to pay for a notary, there was just a note that the city clerk in their town will notarize for free. Also, if you belong to the auto club, they will apparently notarize, because something had come up for me the other day and they said, oh yeah, you can go to auto club and have them notarize.
Talk about the quality of life considerations. I mean, Dr. Kuntz at Saddleback Hospital, he's 86 and he still rides a bike. He says, if I can't ride my bike, life is not worth living. You know, for me, it's, you know, if I can't handle my remote control, life is not worth living. So for each one of us, it's a little different. Organ and tissue donations, for most of us after 70, they more than likely don't need it, but definitely need it for cadavers for medical hospitals. UCI will pay for everything having to do with your funeral if you donate your body to them. How do I want to have completed my, this is not a document to keep secret. You want one in your glove compartment. You want one that your family members have. Definitely you want your advanced healthcare agent to have one and to keep one with them. The best recommendation I have seen so far is take photos of it and put it in your phone. Have your agent have your healthcare directive in their phone. That way they go to the hospital, wherever, most people keep their phones with them and they have it right there. Make sure that on the healthcare directive, you have a list of your prescription drugs. And if you're allergic to anything, make sure that it's known, okay? That way the hospitalist will take less time trying to figure out why you are in the emergency room. Photocopies are just as valid. Next. Pulsed refrigerator. I would, if you're in a nursing home and a hospital, make sure they put it in the chart, but I also would put the pulse on your phone. That way it's always there. And when I was in the emergency room here in Laguna Beach, and I said, I have the advanced healthcare directive and everything about the client that you're looking at right now in my car. And he said, no, I don't read anything. Just tell me what's going on. Doctors don't like to read. So the more your healthcare agent is familiar with your situation, keep them up to date so they can give the information orally. Next.
I think we've covered all that one. So I want to go to, here's where I want to get to here. Because I think we need to spend some time here.
Yeah. It used to be, I don't know if it's still this way. Catholic hospitals kind of discouraged hospice care. And based on religion. I don't know if that's still there today or not, but let's talk about palliative versus hospice care because they're part of each other. Hospice care, first of all, both of them are comfort care as a priority. Hospice care says, I don't want any procedure done to me to cure me. I would like every procedure done to keep me comfortable. And hospice is also a Medicare program. So Medicare pays for hospice care. Palliative care does not get paid by Medicare per se, but it's could be skilled care that could be paid, or palliative care in a hospital would be paid under acute care. People, to get on hospice care, you have to have a doctor's order stating that you have a 50% chance or greater of dying within the next 6 months. So let's follow the money trail for a second. Some medical practices do not take care of hospice patients. If you're under an HMO, for example, the government pays that HMO to take care of your care, health maintenance organization, to maintain you and to cover your medical expenses. Sometimes if you go on hospice care, that monthly payment the HMO was getting now goes to a different entity. So a lot of times I see primary care physicians and families not going to hospice care soon enough. And hospice care is awesome. They pay for medical care. They pay for nursing care. They pay for somebody to come in and give you morphine and other drugs. They're on call 24/7. A minister or priest is there for you, all paid for by Medicare. So you can get off of hospice care one day and you can be off hospice care the next day. But if I talk to a 50-year-old and I say, I'm recommending hospice care for your mom or dad, the first thing they think of is they're going to die. We can't give up on mom or dad. And by the way, you're not giving up. I never use that kind of language. Hospice care is about comfort care. And a lot of times, 20% of hospice patients live 2 or more years. And many of them just get off of hospice care. Now, what is palliative care? Because of the stigma that hospice care has with some family members, quote unquote, we're giving up and they're going to die, people are now talking about palliative care. It's the same thing. We're going to focus on comfort care, but if there's a procedure that's needed, we'll do the procedure. You need to study a little bit. You need to talk about it a little bit. Palliative care is awesome. If you're 90 years old and you're bedridden and, I probably would choose hospice care. So, but again, everybody is an individual. Just make sure that your agent understands the difference and will do what is in your interest.
I use as an example, my aunt, my mother's older sister. She had very advanced cancer. She had the ability to afford to live at home with care, 24-hour a day coverage, everything else. And in chatting with her, she was fully cognizant of everything going on around her, what was happening. She had at first made the decision she wanted to continue chemo. And we said, okay, so went to the oncologist, and the oncologist was extremely honest and said, you won't like the quality of life that you will have if we continue chemo. And she said, okay, then we will stop doing that. Went back home and we said, we recommend you go on to hospice. Well, no, what if I live longer than 6 months? Then you'll come off of hospice and continue to live. That's not a problem. But it was an interesting conversation with her of going through what are the options. And she finally decided she could have done palliative. At the time, this is a number of years ago, I don't think palliative was very common at that point. Instead, hospice, and she was very comfortable. My sister was there, and my sister went to Berkeley in the free speech movement, early 70s time frame at Berkeley. And she said, I gotta be honest with you, Don. The doorbell rang and I opened up the door and there's a pharmacist and a sheriff. And they said, here, you need to sign for these drugs. And she looked at the sheriff and said, why are you here? And he said, because all of this stuff is basically legal drugs if administered correctly. And she said, I felt like I was doing the largest drug deal of my life with a sheriff standing in front of me and all the accountability and everything else that needed to be done. And ultimately it was, she passed away very peacefully.
By the way,
it was
but many of us are going to pass. We're going to die in our sleep.
Yes,
that's normal death.
Please, yes, right. Yeah,
and the procedures keep us extraordinary longer.
Oh yeah.
Than what would be normal, and the money is involved. My wife had lung cancer, and my wife said, I heard about chemo and everything else, and I just don't want to go that route.
Right.
And so she went to a physician in Newport Beach who talked to her and said, I've got a new natural way of curing you, but I need $50,000 up front, and we're going to take your blood sample. We'll send it off to France, where they have a special lab to tell us exactly what kind of cancer you have. Well, she happened to be going, the following week, she happened to go into the ER, and we had a wonderful nurse there. And she asked her as what's going on and what her medical condition was. And so we talked about it. And she goes, well, who did you go see? And she goes, oh my God, my mother had cancer. There is no way any medical professional can determine what kind of cancer you have and what kind of treatment is needed without doing a biopsy. And so the nurse asked my wife, said, have you had a biopsy? And she goes, no. So she goes, before you go to alternative treatments, why don't you go to an oncologist? And she recommended someone who was absolutely wonderful. And bottom line of the story is that you had an operation, they removed a tumor, only sacrificed 20% of one of her lobes, and she's doing super. But even in talking to the oncologist, he was telling us the financial aspects of cancer, of who do you go to, chemotherapy, how one physician or another are embedded in one type of procedure or another, because that's what they know. And it reminds me of, if you go to an insurance agent, then the insurance agent is going to recommend an insurance product to kill you. I mean, not to kill you.
No.
To as a solution.
Right.
So you need to understand the money aspect of it, and you need to have somebody there to assist you. This is Michael's number.
Right.
I would highly recommend Being Mortal. This is about a physician who had his father, and he was taking care of end-of-life issues. And he was talking about how little physicians know about dying. So it's a wonderful book. I would also recommend Tuesdays with Maury. It was just on CBS, the Sunday morning show, and Mitch Albon, who's the writer. That little book, has sold over 18 million copies. And make sure you have a box of tissues with you when you read it. But look, you got lots of resources, so how you die, you can't control when you die, but how you die is in your control. And the way you stay in control is by the agent that you choose. So, I blame myself for a long period of time having to do with my father. But in essence, it was his responsibility to talk to us to say, this is what I want. And it never happened. So you need to take the responsibility on your shoulders as to talk about death. My mother said if I talk about death with her one more time, she would disown me. So some people are.
So you've been disowned.
Yeah.
So since we've had a very uplifting conversation today, but an exceptionally important one, and it is really, we attempt at times to sort of add a slight amount of levity or something to conversations, because it can be discussions people don't like to have. I happen to have grown up in a family where it's a normal conversation. My wife, her father was a physician, and he didn't want to talk about any of this stuff. My father didn't care and wanted to talk all about it. So it's, it depends on where you are and what your family's doing. Certainly download the material that Michael has on the web, on our site, to get these links if you need those. And Pete, as always, it has been fun. And we're good in terms of questions, in terms of where we are. And so I thank everyone very much. Next, I don't know what next week's subject is.
The next one, we're going to get back to money. We're going to talk about the investment
world. Okay.
Yeah. Sales of financial products.
The investment world. Yes, indeed. That's next week.
And we got a question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Pete.
Yes. I love the lecture. Well, thank you for that feedback. That's really good to hear. Sometimes when we're doing these Zooms, we have very little feedback. So
other than to each other.
Yeah.
So this has been It's Your Money. We've been talking about healthcare and the cost of that, because it's a significant issue in terms of our lives. And we thank you very much for being here and for being a part of it. And hopefully we will see you next week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Don.